We're here today to share the information with you about our partnership discussions, to hear your concerns, answer all your questions. And we're here looking at the overall vision. Wow, something happened. We're looking at the overall vision and doing initial planning. The finer details of this plan is going to be worked out as we go. So we can't necessarily go through every detail, but we have some details, and certainly we can go over the overall vision for you. We have 3 teams from both churches, with representatives from both churches, our leadership coming together and doing this. Now, I have to say, I did this the first time last night, and we knew that there's fear coming into this. And there was fear expressed last night. And quite frankly, I was very slow coming into this partnership idea because, like a lot of you, I had fear. I had fear that we were talking about another consolidation, another partnership, another merger, and I didn't want that. And what I did as a result of that fear is I put myself on one of the teams, the staff team specifically, and I specifically wanted to be on the staff team to make sure that we didn't become a merger, because I too was skeptical at the beginning. As I got into it, I realized there was really no reason to be skeptical about it, because there was no intent to be swallowed up or taken over by St. Paul's. And I think I can speak for Mary too. I think she put herself on the staff team for the same reason, because she also, like me, was a little slower coming into this. But I'm really hopeful, and I hope that you'll listen to this today with an open mind, and I hope when you leave here today that you'll also be hopeful. So I wanted to start with our mission. And back when Pastor Mary Ellen was here, she had us repeat this all the time. But going through it again, what was our mission? What is our mission? Caring for others near and far because Christ cares for us. So looking around, we actually have a pretty good attendance today. But looking around, I think we can agree we're kind of hurting. We have fewer people. We have a tired congregation. And I don't want to sound offensive because it might be, but I think we've become stagnant. We've been doing the same thing, and we're not growing. We're not vibrant anymore. And it's really hard for us at this point to fulfill our mission. We have decreased membership. The decreased membership means we have fewer volunteers, quite frankly. Fewer volunteers means we can no longer fulfill our mission in that way that we want to be able to fulfill that mission. And it's a problem, and it's something that we need to address if we want to try thriving again as a congregation. And we need to address it soon before we call a pastor and in conjunction with that. But that ties into my next slide, actually, because we do have inevitable changes that are going to happen regardless of what direction we choose to go in as a congregation. And those changes, our Pastor Adam and Vicar Adam will be leaving in summer 2019. Jane, who's been here for, I think it's 38 years, nearly 40, but she's going to be retiring soon. So the obvious solution, it's like, okay, so we call a new pastor and we hire a new secretary. Okay. Except for that obvious solution isn't as simple in the 21st century church. There's not as many people going to seminary school as there were 20, 30, 40 years ago. And just as an example, for every new pastor that's coming out of the seminary, there are approximately 4 churches seeking a new pastor. So when you hear that, think, what church will get a new pastor more quickly? What church will a new minister be more likely to accept a call to? The church that's sadly diminishing in numbers and kind of continuing on the same path, or the church that's willing to walk in a new direction, willing to innovate, and partner, and here partner with St. Paul's to try something new, to try new things that we would share together, which I'll get to in a little bit. So there's a process that we have to go to get a new pastor, and that's called MSP, or the Ministry Site Profile, and that's basically the application that we have to complete for the synod. And in that application, we must define specifically what we're seeking. So there's a difference between if we want a minister who's going to just come in and perform our services and doing weddings and funerals and baptisms, that would be something we'd specify. Or if we're looking for a minister to pursue this partnership that's willing to be our minister, but yet partner with Pastor Bigner from St. Paul's, and share the ministry, share the efforts, yet retaining our own identity. And I want to keep on specifying that. That's something that we need to spell out in detail on this ministry site profile. And this ministry site profile is going to be something that you will be voting on in December. Again, that's required by the synod. And we have to have our intent in place before we complete this application and before ultimately we get a new minister. So that brings us to the logo that Frank designed, doing more together. Now this idea, this partnership idea, has been evolving. And Arlene spoke about that a couple weeks ago. So I'm not going to go through too much historically how it's been evolving, but I will say, I guess the idea was actually planted, the seeds were planted before Pastor Mary Ellen and Nancy retired, but we weren't ready to consider anything new at that point. But it's been talked about for a while. And your council has been talking about this for a long time. And I've been on the council now, I think, 2 years? I don't remember if it's 2 or 3, 2, I think. So that's what I want to spend most of today on, is talking about what Crossroads as a partner with St. Paul's could be like. And again, I started out today talking about fears and the fears of consolidation, the fears that this is the same thing that we did before. And I want to say no, it's not. I think that you'll see that the changes that would come, and there will be some changes, but the changes aren't going to be all that significant. And remember, to merge or to consolidate means to become one single entity. And that's what we did with our 3 congregations. We're talking about partnership, which again, I changed the color of the text on this film and it's still not showing up. But a partner is a person or a church, in our case, who shares or is associated with another in some action or endeavor, a sharer or an associate. So it's at dictionary.com. A partnership is a state or condition of being a partner, participation, association, joint interest. Guys, this is what we're talking about. We're not talking about becoming one. We don't want to become one. Mary and I put ourselves on that staff committee to make sure we didn't become one. We want to go into this being 2 equal partners that are joining together to do potentially great things. And as I was planning this presentation, I wanted to sit down and figure out the areas that we are currently partnering in. And I have to say, I was kind of surprised. And as you know, I don't have kids, so I don't pay attention to a lot of the youth group and Sunday school and all of that stuff. But then when I sat down to see what we've already been just gradually baby stepping into without even thinking about it, because it was just a natural thing to do, I had vaguely heard about confirmation. That confirmation has been held at Crossroads. And we partner currently with St. Paul's and 8 other churches. And there's 17 kids in confirmation class. Only 6 of those kids are from Crossroads. And that's here, and that would remain here. The youth group. The youth group is held at Crossroads, and it's primarily St. Paul's and 2 other churches. The kids are ages 6th to 12th grade. There's 20 kids in that youth group. And only 3 of those 20 kids are from Crossroads. And how wonderful it is that those 3 kids from Crossroads get the benefit of coming together with all these other Lutheran kids, primarily from St. Paul's, but from the other congregations as well. Impact Day Camp. That was held for 1 week out of 4 this year, and each week there were 20 kids who came to Crossroads. We have already partnered with Lenten Holy Week, I think, for 2 years. I'm not sure if it's more, 2 years, Mary's nodding, okay. The Bible study is kind of a work in progress that's partnering this year, and we'll see how that goes. The church picnic we've done together for a couple of years, and then some of our ministries. And if I miss anything, don't hate me for it, but I know I've heard that backpacks and tutoring are things that we have done together with St. Paul's already. So those are the things we've already been doing. Now, what will change? Well, 3 big changes. A shared ministry team, shared office staff, and family support center. So let's start with a shared ministry team. What does that mean? Well, Crossroads would be calling our own pastor. Pastor Steve Bigner would be still called, hired by, whatever, St. Paul's. And there'd be a 3rd non-ordained layperson who will participate in worship and run several ministries. So think about this. Both churches will have their own pastor, but those pastors will work together in an interdependent manner to come together. We would have this layperson that I'm not quite sure if that layperson would be called by our church or hired by our church or their church or some combined in the middle. The details are being worked out by the logistics team. But that layperson would potentially be assisting in the worship service, running some of the ministries we talked about, turning some of the youth activities over to that person. We would have a unified team that could lead us to fulfill our mission for the community and for the congregations. And just as an aside, when we talk about the community, I know we've been focusing on the 14226, the Snyder, Eggertsville. That's a place to start. And I realized when we consolidated a few years ago, one of the churches that we did consolidate with was in Cheektowaga. There's no limitation that the only community that we would serve would be the Snyder-Eggertsville community. But we have to start someplace. So what better way to start than with our neighborhood? But certainly that can expand and it can evolve as this process will continue to do. There's an idea to have an enhanced presence with campus ministry. We would have better use of funding so that both churches could receive the leadership from 3 full-time staff at equal or less pay. And one thing that's kind of key for us is that during our period of transition, in terms of transition being obtaining a new minister, we would have continuous pastoral care because Pastor Bigner would be assisting us, again, as part of this partnership, regardless of whether it took 2 weeks to get a minister or however many months to get a minister. We wouldn't see the idea is that that transition of getting a new minister would be more or less seamless. So, shared ministry team, we would have multiple worship and prayer opportunities. St. Paul's would have the traditional service, and Crossroads would still have Saturday and Sunday, but both services, the idea would be we would have a contemporary, dynamic contemporary service here. Okay, so the second change is shared office staff. And I don't really have much to say about that. I mean, that's a matter of reducing costs and being more efficient. If we have this shared ministry, this shared partnership with St. Paul's, we don't necessarily need one person duplicating efforts, one person typing up the programs for both churches. That can be handled by one person, but we would certainly have a staff person here, and the logistics team is working on defining whether that person's a secretary or some sort of building manager or whatever. That part's still in discussion. But shared office staff is just to increase efficiency, reduce costs. And the other bigger change is a family support center. And the family support center is an idea that came from the school districts approaching the churches, that they were asking for this. And I wasn't familiar with this concept when I first heard about it. And I actually got it mixed up with another organization for a while. But this is something that would provide mental health and wellness care. And this would be here in our building, probably upstairs. In a large part, it would be funded by the school district. And primarily it would be in the evening hours. So hypothetically, if a counselor at Amherst Middle School is counseling some kid and finds need to do family counseling, they can come into our facility and do that. And I know that there's all sorts of other things a family support center can do, but bottom line is it would be a way that we can further fulfill our mission in caring for others near and far. And we can do that here, and a big part of that won't even be funded by us. It would be funded by the school districts and grants. So our goal here is to have the opportunities of a larger congregation, yet retaining the intimacy of a smaller congregation. Now, I've talked about the changes, which really, and incidentally, with respect to that family support center, for the most part, most of us aren't going to see that, because that's not going to be happening when we're here in church. That's going to be happening, for the most part, when we're not in the building. But again, something that we can give to the community. But what are things that will remain the same at Crossroads? And I think that this is the bigger surprise, because it's, well, again, we would still be calling our own pastor. Our own pastor would be working in partnership with another pastor and a third layperson, but we would have our own pastor. We would still be having Saturday night and Sunday services here at Crossroads. We would still continue our ministries, such as the Sandwich Committee and Baby Blessings and whatever other ministries that I'm not as familiar with. So if I miss it, let me know. We'd still be doing the concerts and the caroling. Our finances will remain separate. And I want to repeat that. Our finances will remain separate. We are not merging. We have no intent to merge. Our money remains with us. Our congregational, just to wake you up, our congregational records will remain separate. So, in some respects, I think that there's a perception that we're making a little bit more out of this than we need to, because in a lot of respects, there's not going to be that much change that you guys are going to see. But there's a potential, and that's, I have a slide, what's in it for us. And I think the biggest word of what's in it for us is opportunity. It's an opportunity to fulfill our mission, an opportunity to thrive instead of to just survive. This is a dynamic, cooperative partnership to tell the Amherst community, and certainly that can expand, that we want to do more for you. It's a way to better serve the community and the congregations. To participate, we have the opportunity to participate in each congregation's ministries, such as, and they have ministries that are interesting. The Tiger's Den Food Pantry, we've already been familiar with, and I think we're already contributing to a certain amount there, and their food truck. Another opportunity is Sunday school. And when I was looking into, again, what things our church has done, I was kind of sad to hear that our Sunday school consists of 5 kids from 3 families. that range in age from, I think it's 3 to 10, and are in the same classroom once every other week. St. Paul's has between 20 and 30 kids. And that's something that we're not partnering with yet. And the logistics team is exploring ways to figure out how to partner with that. But how wonderful if our 5 kids can have the benefit of being in classes with kids their own age and with other kids. Because we don't have a whole lot of them around here and have the benefit of that. We are working really hard. We on the teams exploring this possibility are working really hard to maintain our own identity and to make sure that we're 2 equal partners coming into this that are coming together to not just to exist, but to thrive. Your church council that you've elected is completely on board with this. The dean is on board with this. And again, we have 3 teams representing both congregations. And it's our belief, it's my belief, that we can accomplish a lot if we pull together. This is evolving. And it's just the beginning. There's nothing set in stone at this point. We welcome your ideas, and we need your ideas. We welcome and we need your participation. We need your support, because frankly, we're not going to succeed without your support and without support from both congregations. So the one more scary thing that I said last night is when this is voted, and it'll be the ministry site profile that outlines all of this. They'll be voted on in December. But when it's voted, if it's voted down, I don't really see what our options are. Financially, we're fine. We're not going to close the door overnight. But we're not growing. We're not thriving anymore. I think the next step is just to prepare for our gradual demise. And I don't want to do that, and I don't think any of you want to do that. So I'm hoping that you're optimistic that we can potentially fulfill our mission. I think we're being called to do this. And again, our mission for caring for others near and far, because Christ cares for us.